In a Persian summer, this ice should have vanished months ago. Yet underground, winter was still alive.
Outside, summer burned the plateau. Inside, one small piece of winter could turn ordinary water into relief.
The dome was only the final chamber. The real machine extended from water channel to freezing pool to underground pit.
A Yakhchal did not create cold on demand. It captured winter, stored it, and spent it slowly through summer.
Water, night sky, shadow, mud brick, drainage, and labor all had to work in the correct order. Before ice, there had to be water, often delivered through carefully managed channels linked to local irrigation systems.
On freezing winter nights, workers spread very shallow layers of water across long, open basins. The exposed water released heat toward the clear night sky, while cold, dry air removed more from the surface. In dry conditions, evaporation removed additional heat, but its contribution depended on humidity, temperature, and air movement. By morning, a fragile skin of ice could cover the basin. That was only the first layer. More water was added over successive nights until the ice became thick enough to cut, lift, and store. The tall wall did not create freezing. Its job was to protect the basin and new ice from direct sun. Then the quiet experiment became heavy labor. Score the surface, split the sheet, and lift the blocks. Every block had to cross the yard and descend before returning sunlight added too much heat. The storage chamber extended below ground, where surrounding soil moderated the extreme temperature swings at the surface. Above the pit, thick mud brick slowed the daily heat wave before it could reach the stored ice. Some melting was inevitable. The design succeeded by draining water and slowing the loss of everything that remained. The Yakhchal did not defeat summer. It rationed winter across it. But how much ice actually survived?
The desert was not always hot. Yakhchals depended on cold winter nights, hidden inside a climate famous for summer heat. Not every cold night worked. Clear sky, dry air, low temperature, and shallow water had to align.
A deep pond carried too much stored heat. A shallow sheet could lose enough energy before sunrise. Under a clear sky, the water radiated heat toward a sink colder than the surrounding air.
A modern Maybod model found sky radiation dominated cooling. Evaporation mattered too, while air convection contributed far less.
As water molecules escaped the surface, evaporation carried additional heat away, especially before a continuous ice skin formed. Clouds, humidity, and sky exposure could change the result, even when air temperature alone looked promising. The soil returned heat upward. Freezing began only when radiation and evaporation removed more than the ground supplied. Fresh water spread over existing ice renewed the exposed surface and built the harvest one thin layer at a time.
Historical descriptions report layers roughly 5 to 10 centimeters deep, repeated until the ice became thick enough to cut.
Even diffuse daylight could reverse the gain. Harvesting each morning protected what the night had created. The wall did not create cold. It kept the low winter sun from undoing the night's work. For a modeled 416 square meter Maybod pond, one simulation predicted roughly 49 cubic meters of ice in a typical year. That number is a model, not an ancient measurement. Weather, geometry, soil, and operating assumptions all shape it.
The sky made the cold. So why did the freezing field need a wall taller than a house?
In winter, the sun crossed low through the southern sky. A tall wall threw its shadow across the freezing basin.
Height alone was not enough. The wall had to shade the full basin during the critical morning hours.
Many complexes extended the wall east and west, limiting low-angle sunlight from both ends of the freezing field. The basin still needed an open view of the sky. Shade blocked sunlight without closing the radiative path above. New ice remained vulnerable after sunrise. The wall bought workers time to cut and move it underground. The freezing pool was long, shallow, and aligned with the shadow, not a deep pond hidden beneath a roof. A level floor helped keep water uniformly thin. Deeper pockets carried more heat and slowed freezing. Water entered after sunset, when solar gain had ended, and the exposed surface could begin losing heat immediately. Earth removed for pits and basins became mud brick, turning excavation into walls, channels, and the storage dome. Before winter, cracks, channels, and eroded surfaces required repair. Passive engineering still depended on constant maintenance. A plastered basin reduced seepage long enough for shallow water to freeze, layer upon layer. At dawn, workers cut the thickened ice and dragged it along the shaded route toward the storage entrance. The wall protected production, not storage. Once inside, earth, insulation, drainage, and restricted openings took over. Even perfect shade could not freeze warm water on a mild night. Architecture could only amplify favorable weather. Outside, the wall protected a few hours of freezing. Underground, the Yakhchal had to protect that ice for months. The door did not open into a cold room. It opened into a buried reservoir built to slow every path of heat. Most of the ice sat below ground, where surrounding soil softened the violent daily temperature swing at the surface. The earth did not freeze the chamber. It reduced the speed and size of the heat pulse reaching it. The famous dome did not make the ice. It enclosed the buried store and slowed heat arriving from above. Some domes had crown openings, but one storage model found managed ventilation changed predicted melting only slightly. Sun-dried mud brick and plaster formed a massive shell that delayed summer heat moving inward. Historical descriptions report straw or thatch around and within the ice packs, adding insulation beyond the earthen shell. Some accounts describe an especially deep straw layer above the ice, protecting its most exposed surface. In one model, roughly 60% of annual heat reached the ice through the top surface beneath the dome. With half a meter of thatch, the same model predicted about 1/5 of a full store melting over the year. Doubling the thatch in the model reduced predicted loss, showing insulation mattered far more than dramatic airflow. Each summer opening admitted heat. Access had to be brief, controlled, and followed by closing the store again. Meltwater could not remain around the ice. It had to drain or seep away at the bottom of the pit. Across Iran, ice houses included domed stores, underground chambers, and walled pits. The famous cone was only one form. The shell slowed heat. Survival now depended on how workers packed, insulated, drained, and rationed the winter harvest. Before the first block entered, workers cleared the drain, repaired the lining, and prepared the pit for months of storage. Separate blocks exposed more surface to heat. Packed together, the winter harvest behaved as one larger thermal mass. As new blocks arrived, the stored mass grew upward from the deepest floor toward the narrow entrance above. Historical accounts describe straw, rush, and earth shielding stored ice from sunshine and heat around the pit. When winter loading ended, the heavy entrance closed, leaving architecture to manage the long interval before summer. Through spring, the ice slowly rounded, settled, and lost mass. Success meant preserving enough, not preserving everything. Meltwater could not remain around the ice. Drainage carried it downward, preventing liquid water from surrounding the store. In some villages, opening the Yakhchal in summer became a communal event, marking winter labor finally becoming useful. Summer distribution meant reopening the store, cutting only what was needed, and closing the entrance again. The building stored ice in bulk. Summer use required smaller pieces to be carried into homes, markets, and streets. Ice could cool drinks and desserts, such as falude, turning winter labor into a rare form of summer relief. But the Yakhchal itself was an ice store, not a walk-in refrigerator filled with meat, milk, and produce. Where qanats belonged to a waqf, the ice house could be cooperative. Elsewhere, businessmen or landowners controlled it. Before anyone could distribute ice, communities had to maintain the qanat and divide its winter water. The architecture stored winter, but society decided who could use it. In summer, cold became a question of access. The first claim on summer ice began upstream. Whoever controlled winter water controlled how much could enter the freezing basin. Cooperative ownership still required rules: maintain the qanat, divide water shares, schedule freezing, and protect the common store. Private owners could turn the same architecture into a commercial enterprise, controlling investment, labor, access, and summer distribution. The key represented more than security. It controlled when the door opened, how much ice left, and for whom. Each opening admitted heat, so ice was cut in limited amounts, and the entrance closed again, as quickly as possible. Every journey cost ice. Local distribution reduced melting, tying the value of cold to distance from the Yakhchal. In larger desert cities, many walled and underground ice houses formed part of commercial infrastructure, not merely household storage. Later observers recorded more than 80 former ice houses in Tehran and more than 40 in Isfahan. In the 1670s, John Fryer described Persians mixing snow or ice into water, wine, and sherbets. Fryer even claimed poor residents might spend scarce money on snow, showing how strongly people valued summer cold. But common desire did not mean equal access. Water rights, ownership, location, labor, and money still shaped distribution. In some villages, filling the Yakhchal in winter became a communal celebration after days of freezing and heavy labor. Some communities also celebrated the summer opening, when the stored winter harvest finally returned to daily life. Behind 1 cup of ice stood months of maintenance, water allocation, freezing, cutting, packing, drainage, and guarded storage. The Yakhchal linked water, labor, ownership, trade, and survival. So why do modern videos reduce it to one magic dome? Popular videos present surviving Yakhchal domes as 2,400-year-old machines. That dating is far more uncertain. Simple ice pits may reach back millennia. The architectural path from those pits to later domes remains poorly documented. Yakhchals did not normally make ice during summer. They harvested winter cold, then protected it through the hot season. The building mainly stored solid ice for later distribution. It was not a walk-in refrigerator packed with food. The dome was only one component. Water, basins, shade, drainage, insulation, and labor completed the system. Wind catchers served many Iranian buildings, especially houses and cisterns. They were not universal equipment on every Yakhchal. In the Maybod model, night sky radiation dominated cooling. Dramatic airflow played a much smaller role than popular animations suggest. The shadow wall did not freeze water. It blocked sunlight while the cold night sky removed heat from the basin. The ice always melted. The achievement was not perfect preservation, but controlling how slowly the winter harvest disappeared. A survey mapped 111 domed, 12 underground, and 6 walled ice houses. The cone was only one form. A domed water reservoir can resemble a Yakhchal, but materials, stairs, water tap, and purpose reveal a different building. Remove the myths, and the achievement becomes clearer. Persia stored a season inside architecture. Could that physics matter again? Could it work today? Not by copying the dome. The useful inheritance is a sequence: capture, store, insulate, and release. A 2017 study modeled a 400 square meter ultra-low energy office in Yazd, asking whether Yakhchal physics could cool it. The roof became the winter pond. An insulated pit beneath the op became the seasonal store. The model predicted 48 cubic meters of winter ice, slightly more stored cooling than the office used in a year. Yet comfort limits were exceeded during 1/5 of occupied hours. The concept was promising, not complete. The study deliberately set cost and feasibility aside. Water, land, hygiene, maintenance, and controls would decide whether it could exist. Modern radiative panels still send heat toward the sky, cooling circulating water with little electricity and no evaporative loss. Modern surfaces can reflect sunlight while emitting infrared heat, extending sky cooling beyond the winter night. Clouds, humidity, dust, and blocked sky reduce the effect. Climate remains part of the machine. Modern buildings still freeze water, store its latent cooling, then melt it later when the building needs relief. Unlike the Yakhchal, most modern systems use chillers. Their advantage is timing, making ice when electricity is less strained. During peak heat, stored ice absorbs the cooling load, letting compressors work less when the grid is under pressure. The honest descendant is hybrid: passive heat rejection, efficient machinery, deep insulation, and thermal storage working together. The original system turned winter labor into summer relief. The modern question is whether that relief can reach everyone. Persia's lesson is not the dome. Capture cold when it is available, store it well, and release it when heat becomes dangerous. For more evidence-based history, please subscribe to Lantern History. Then tell us, which Persian engineering principle should modern buildings bring back?